This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 857 of Horse Tip Daily. A different horse tip, a different equine topic, a different equestrian expert every day. Horse Tip Daily brings the world of equine knowledge to you, one day at a time. Greetings, horse people. Coach Jen here, and thanks for tuning in to Horse Tip Daily. Today, Glenn the Geek poses a listener question about working young horses to Dressage radio show co-hosts Reese Kofler-Stanfield and Philip Parks. And we'll get right to our tip after this from Kentucky Performance Products.
Hi, Glenn the Geek here from the Horse Radio Network, and I'm here with Karen from Kentucky Performance Products. We're going to talk about omega fatty acids in equine nutrition.
Called Contribute. That is it's a combination of fish oil and flax oil. And it provides a complete complement of omega-3s. Okay. It has an 8-to-1 ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s, and it contains the plant and marine sources of omega-3s. Now, there's been some palatability issues with fish oil. I don't know if you've ever smelled some of the fish oils that are... Mm-hmm. Lots of horses will run to the back of their stall and just stand there going, oh, my right. God, Mom, what did you put in my feed tub?
Some of the human pills are like that, too.
Ooh, yeah, you can really taste it. So we did a lot of research with our product, and we got a fish oil that just on its own smelled pretty good, and then we've added some flavor, some cherry flavor to it that has made it very palatable. So we have very few horses turning it down. And like anything, you have to introduce it slowly, and should introduce it slowly anyway to the horse. But we have very few horses that'll turn it down.
Well, that's terrific. It's good to learn. I never knew about the ratio between the 3s and the 6s. And, of course, you can find out more information on Kentucky Performance Products' new website. Has a terrific article on this, and we'll link to that in our show notes as well as on our Facebook page. Or you could just go to kppusa.com to find out more about omega fatty acids and the Contribute product. Just look under products. I have an email that I thought maybe you guys could tackle here, seeing we're talking about young horses. Fits right in. It says, hi, Reese and Philip. I'm enjoying listening to the episodes of the Dressage Radio Network. I am interested in hearing about the upcoming Young Horse Symposium to be held in September in Massachusetts. I want to know more about the correct fundamental system for starting young horses. I would like to hear specifics about how often to work a 3-year-old under saddle and how long sessions should be. My 3-year-old is going well under saddle, but I need to know where to go from here. Would it be a good idea to let her have time off this winter? I would like to start showing her next year. I have many questions, and probably your listeners will also, from Sarah. This Sarah might be a good one to get on the show here at some point, and let her ask the questions of you guys in person. But doesn't it depend? What little I know, doesn't it depend on the horse really at 3 years old?
Yes,
absolutely.
Big time. Yeah, big time.
This is why the questions about young horses is there's almost no. I mean, there's some guidelines that we go by, but there's almost no wrong answer sort of thing, because every single horse, we know this, that every single horse is an individual. And for sure, when you start them, they're just their own horse a little bit. And you got to work, be able to assess each one. And
okay, but stop there. Let me jump in for Sarah.
Okay.
Because I know virtually nothing, so Sarah knows a lot more than I do, but
that's why we love having you here, Glenn.
Because I know nothing. So if I was Sarah, I'd come back and say, okay, but how do I know? If it depends on the individual horse, which it does, how do I know that I'm not pushing my horse too hard? How do I know that?
Right.
Well, I think your horse tells you. I think like where Philip was going with this is, we go to a conference every year to talk about 3-year-olds and young horses. And, even trainers sometimes have to step back and say, okay, well, how do I know? And I can tell you a little bit. I this year and this summer, I've been working with my 2 3-year-olds. I just sold my 1 3-year-old, but she was wonderful. We had her since she was born here. So I've had her whole life, and she's been in some sort of some sort of training, and that's in quotation marks. I mean, training for a young horse may be that they come up and they, get groomed and bathed and walking around the ring.
Is
and
training.
You take him for a power walk. Yeah.
Right. Power walk in the ring with other horses, or you walk them over poles, or, so there's lots of stuff you can do before they turn 3. But so she was ready. We took her June 1st, she went to the trainers and she was ready. I mean, we backed her as a 2-year-old actually last winter. And she was great. She was ready. It was no problem. We did 10 rides on her, really just sit on her. So she knew sort of what that was all about. And in June, she went to the trainer, and at the end of July, she walked, trotted, and cantered. She did a little jump. She was ready to sort of go to horse shows, and she did get sold to a wonderful young lady who will have her this winter. And I'm hoping she'll get a little bit of time off. If I had kept her, she would have gotten a little bit of time off this fall / winter when it was really cold and yucky. I probably would have turned her out for a month or two, just because she was great. She was so far ahead. And then I have my young man who is 3, and I bought him. He's a Riviano colt. He was actually a stallion, and now he's a gelding. So when we gelded him, the vet's like, he has to exercise because of the surgery. So we did a bunch of lunging with him because we had to. He had to. I wasn't ready to break him the day after the surgery myself. So did a lot of lunging with him, did a lot of groundwork. And then it became very apparent he needed a job. He was kind of bored with lunging. He was kind of bored with in-hand work. I had the mounted police. I have the mounted police come and work with all my young ones. So they walk over tarps, and, they have ropes on them, and, they do all kinds of desensitization work with them. But it was becoming apparent he wanted a real job. So he just went last week to really get started. So those are 2 very different individuals. One was ready probably early spring to go and get started. And that was the filly. And I'm not saying boys, anything between the boys or the girls, but my young man was far less mature and still is less mature than the 3-year-old filly.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common. I think the fillies grow up a little earlier, and the geldings or the stallions take a little bit longer. I think that's pretty normal. So, yeah, I mean, I was talking a little bit about guidelines. I think, consistency is so important when you're starting a young horse. So, I think 5-6 days a week, no problem, right? But keep the sessions a little bit short, because their attention span, I mean, they're like kids a little bit. Their attention span's a little bit short. They can't go forever. So if you have a 3-year-old going under saddle, I think somewhere between 20 and 40 minutes would be kind of a long ride or a long session with a young horse. 5 to 6 days a week is great. And then for us up north, I think kind of they have January, February off for sure. Sometimes December and March as well. It depends. Like if I'm going into November, I'm thinking this horse is going great. I'm loving what's happening. Everything is great. Then boom, December outside and it's a little bit safety thing too, because, we ride in the indoor, and a lot of snow and ice and these conditions can be very scary for a young horse. So, I try and give them off a little bit those times. It's also very cold. And so then the consistency can become a problem. I don't work horses, when it's super, super cold, or, if we're having a blizzard outside, there's not a lot of point to trying to ride in the arena when there's so many distractions. So then, I can't be as consistent as I want to be. So they might as well, be out and just be horses, or be turned out and spend the winter a little bit that, and then bring them back in their 4-year-old year, in March or April, as the weather starts to turn back again. The horses, even the older horses, are a little nervous, a little bit, it's hard to work them in the winter. So, yeah, I think, the weather can be a little bit dependent on that, where you live in the States or in Canada, can give you some guidelines about the training as well. So, hopefully we're answering some of the questions for Sarah. Anything else you want to add to that there, please? Sorry.
Well, no, I think you did a good job. I mean, again, you really have to listen to your young horse and really decide. I've had some that 4 days a week is good for them, or I have some that they need to work every day, because they can't really remember if they have time off, what's going on. So I think they tell you, and you have to listen and be aware of what your horse is and know your horse. And the other thing we didn't mention is the vet work. You need to make sure that there's, that all their bones and everything are okay, and they've been checked out by the veterinarian, I think is important. Are their knees closed and that type of thing? Depending and how are they growing? And, so you've got all those options too. So it is tough. And like I said, Philip and I, we get together with a group of trainers every year and we talk just about this very thing because I think
it's so important for them to get a great basis for their training. I mean, that takes them through their entire life, right? And their entire competition career. And to give them a really great start is so important. And that's why we spend a lot of time talking to people about it and talking to trainers about it, because it's not something you just want to glaze over. So if you're having problems with the young horse, don't wait months to try and fix it or try to get an expert in. Just talk to your vet right away. Talk to your trainer right away. And I think the last point I just thought about when Reese was talking is be careful. I think I see this a lot of over lunging on a small circle with young horses.
Yeah.
And I think that's detrimental to their health, to their joints, to their tendons and stuff. So if I could tell give any advice to somebody, try not to do a ton of lunging and make sure the circles stay as big as the space that you can, because chasing around on a tight circle is really, really bad, and I've seen it a lot. So
that's a really good point.
Yeah, that's my 2 cents about that. And we love the questions, we love the emails. So, and maybe we didn't cover something that you'd like to ask a little more about, Sarah, send us another email. We're great. We'd love to answer them emails and to talk about it. And maybe we get a young horse specialist on about a specific problem. We'd love to do that for you. So.
If you enjoyed Reese and Philip chatting about all things dressage, you can tune in every week at dressageradio.com. You can also find lots more tips about topics ranging from barn care to websites for horse people at horsetipdaily.com. Just look for the topics drop-down menu on the left. And you can have all of the Horse Radio Network shows with you wherever you go with our new free app for iPhone and Android. Just go to your app store and search for Horse Radio Network. And don't forget to support our sponsors here on Horse Tip Daily, because they do make these podcasts possible. Today's podcast has been brought to you through the generous support of Kentucky Performance Products. You can ask for Kentucky Performance Products at your local tack and feed supplier, or you can visit them online at kppusa.com. The Horse Radio Network and the Horse Radio Network hosts are not responsible for statements of guests or their opinions. Use your own judgment when listening to the tips provided by the experts on Horse Tip Daily.